Let me ask you this. On the subject of broker transparency, can you please share with us what are the discussions that are happening, if you don't mind, and if you're hearing any, what are the discussions that's happening amongst brokers behind the scenes on the subject of broker transparency? It makes sense to me that it would make sense to me that a broker would be against broker transparency. That makes sense to me. But are there any brokers that don't care whether it's enforced or not? In other words, are there any brokers out there that are like, man, if they enforce it and we got to show our records, I don't care. They're going to affect one thing, or the other. Or is everybody on that broker side against broker transparency?
No, I'm sure you have people out here. I see people come in the comment section on my videos that say, "Hey, I'm okay with it. If they want us to share, I'll be okay with it." I think a lot of times those are people that own trucking companies as well as brokerages, and they're doing way more work on the trucking side than they are on the brokerage side, so they have that opinion. I'll share with you what the TIA. The TIA is the Transportation Intermediaries Association, right? And they are like a big freight brokerage association, and they went and they filed a petition on behalf of freight brokers, right? And that petition was filed saying that they removed the requirement that freight brokers have to share those transaction documents. Well, the FMCSA came back and denied that petition and said that we're not going to grant this petition. Okay, so here's how the TIA responded. They said, we've got a situation where hundreds of millions of dollars of freight is being stolen by fraudulent companies in the trucking market. The NHTSA is telling us that truck crashes are up 10%. A majority of the trucks on the road go without safety rating. It's a complete failure by the FMCSA when it comes to safety. Instead, they want to initiate a rulemaking that involves private commercial contract negotiations. We're kind of dumbfounded, right? Now, what they're saying there is, with all of the other problems that are going on in the industry, you want to focus and make rulemaking around this idea that brokers it should be a requirement that brokers share their transaction documents, a private contract. Now, you're saying a private company has to come and share his documents with another company. That's basically what the TIA is saying. They're kind of dumbfounded by that, is what they say. Well, how I look at that as a small brokerage, if you make it so that brokers have to share these documents, now let's make sure that we understand it's already a law. 371.3 says that brokers have to share those documents, right? But it also doesn't say that I can't have a clause in my contract that says when we're doing business, we're not sharing our documents. If you're okay with that, we can work together. If not, we won't work together, right? I can have that clause in the contract. Some bigger brokerages do that, right? I have never had a carrier ask me for my transaction documents. That has never happened.
That's interesting.
I see that on social media, but that's never happened, right? So how I see it is, if you allow it and you make it so that, bam, at the end of a transaction, I automatically have to show these or send my documents to the carrier, I think that bigger brokerages are going to be okay. The reason why I say that is because they control way more freight than I do as a small freight brokerage.
Makes
right?
sense.
So they're not going to be really impacted by that, because whatever my rate was, my rate is. And because I control so much freight, either you're going to take it or you're going to leave it. Where it's going to hurt smaller freight brokers, in my thinking, just the way that I see it, is when we don't have as much market share. Truckers say, okay, they see that you're making X, and they say, we're just going to hold out, and we'll give him $200. Or we'll give him $100. We're just going to wait out. We're just going to wait him out, right? So it will give a trucker, in my opinion, more leverage. It would make, to me, the playing field wouldn't be a fair playing field. It wouldn't be, basically, because this is how I see it. I don't have the luxury of going to the shipper and saying, hey, Mr. Shipper, I need to see what your rates are and what you've been paying carriers for the last 90 days. I don't get that luxury. I got to go in and negotiate with that shipper based off of what the market says that particular lane is going at. I got to come up with a number that works. So then what I have to do now is I got to share that number with carriers. And I just don't see that as being a fair playing game. I don't see that as being in the best interest of good competition. I don't see that as being in the best interest of that. That's just how I see it. It's how I see it.
I'm thinking about a conversation that I was having with the carrier, and I think it was interesting what you shared a minute ago, how you believe that the ruling would impact small carriers, small brokers, potentially. I was speaking to a carrier the other day, and he acknowledged he's been a carrier for a long time, but he's like, man, this is a subject I don't know much about, but on the broker transparency issue, in the recent rulings, he was thinking, and you straighten me out on this if I need to be straightened out. He was like, man, I don't think this is going to change much. And it's interesting because you just acknowledged that you believe that it will give the trucker more leverage. The trucker that I was talking to, the carrier that I was talking to, he's like, I don't think it's going to change much. He said, what I think is going to happen is, and again, he acknowledged that he may not know how things work, but he's like, they will figure out some type of way around it. Brokers, and he may have been talking about like mega brokers, but he was like, they'll find some way around it. And he gave a scenario where, maybe they'll start creating sister companies, and they'll do it in a way where still the carrier is not able to see the original rate from the shipper. They may be seeing the rate from the sister company, but they still may not be able to see the rate from the shipper. And he was just like, I don't even know if it works like that, but he's like, it just makes sense to me that a way will be found to work around it. And just now you said you feel like it could actually work in favor for the carriers. The carrier I was speaking to didn't feel like the ruling would favor them carriers at all. So that's interesting to hear you give your perspective.
I'm only saying that it will favor carriers when they're dealing with, or it could favor carriers when they're dealing with smaller freight brokers. As I said in the beginning, when we're talking to larger freight brokers, it's not going to make a difference because that freight broker, when you're talking to TQL, when you're talking these bigger freight brokerages, they command more of the market. They got a whole lot of freight. So
they have the leverage already.
They already got the leverage.
Yes,
so that
I
number is
understand that.
So I don't think it's going to do much of anything to change how a broker operates. As I don't think that, maybe they will do that sister company thing that he was talking about, but I don't even see them having to put that much effort in. If they want us to show the rates, we'll show the rates, but it's not going to change what their rate is. I don't see that.